So yesterday, Lincoln Riley said, "There's no story to bear." Welcome to Chapter 2.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Culkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network your first listen every day. Whether you're watching this show on YouTube, wherever you're going to download this podcast, the show's always going to be free, and you know I'm always going to appreciate your support. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hey, look who's joining the show today, and look who's possibly leaving the program. Well, it's not Scott Schrader is joining the show today. He's not leaving the program. But we've got some, I guess, breaking news to talk about, kind of, sort of, maybe. It looks like the Trojans are going to be without Bear Alexander for the remainder of the season. According to multiple reports and confirmed by WeRSC, Bear Alexander's guardian, his name is Tony Jones. He has confirmed that Bear has decided to jump into he's going to put the red shirt on. All right. He typically likes to wear the Cardinal jersey. He's going to put the red shirt on. He's a junior. My interpretation, he quit on his teammates. I got Scott over here. He did a little bit of a deep dive, talked to some various sources, and we're going to try and figure out what's going on here. Scott, what's going on with Bear? Yesterday, Coach Lincoln.
There's no story here. It's like recruiting. Like you say one thing 1 minute and 30 seconds later, the opposite happens. It's like, what can you do about it? I mean, it's such a bizarre situation to really be in, you know.
So how did this whole thing start? I mean, yesterday there was a little bit of a kerfuffle on social media. Apparently somebody kicked Bear when he was down, and his mentor / father figure, who Bear's really only known as a father, Tony Jones, came to his defense. Understandable. But I think things got a little out of hand somewhere down the line because feelings got hurt. And now all of a sudden, from what I understand, you can confirm, you can whatever. This isn't about NIL. This is about playing time. So what's going on? Why is Bear Alexander deciding 3 games in, when Coach gave him all the praise he needed, hey, you were on the field at the end of the game when it matters. Why is he redshirting? What have you heard? He wants
the situation probably to be, fixed in some way. And we kind of went through a similar situation in the springtime where, it was an NIL issue, and and it did get fixed. They called Ray Donovan or something. And, now we have this situation. Of course, it's kind of like the copycat syndrome, right? You have these guys at UNLV. Oh, yeah, we're going to redshirt, which is now code for we're transferring in 2 months. I just think that, things got maybe a little out of hand. Emotions got a little bit out of control. And then here we are with kind of a situation to where, look, Bear's goal was to play this season and move on to the NFL. Well, he's not going to redshirt and move on to the NFL. So what are we really talking about here? And, in the situation the way it is right now, what big time school is going to take, to bring him in and add him to the roster, knowing the history that's going on there, so it's kind of like an unfortunate situation because, right now, if there was ever a time to be at USC and to be a defensive lineman, it's right now. You got nothing but NFL coaching pedigree across the board. Maybe not with every single position, but you've got Antonlynn, who's the guys after practice when they talk about this coaching staff, talk about the NFL part of it and how they're prepared differently than they were. You can when you hear Easton Mascarenas Arnold talk about, what he played for a hell of a defensive coordinator at Oregon State, right? So now you're talking about a guy praising this coaching staff in a little bit different way and what they bring to the table. And you have Eric Henderson who come from the LA Rams. It's kind of like, wow, why would you there's no answer. So we're just going to continually be asking questions here, everybody.
So, if I'm trying to connect the dots, read the tea leaves, I according to a couple of sources that I've heard from, if this is coming down to playing time, is he holding Lincoln Riley? Is he holding the team hostage, trying to get that extra playing time? He only was on the field for 21 of the 58 defensive snaps that USC had against Michigan, but he was on the field at the end when it mattered. I don't know what he did in the spring. Everybody gave him the benefit of the doubt. No, he's hurt. He's a little injured. I've been straight up about this. He held out. He renegotiated his NIL. That's been confirmed. And now you're doing this now, 3 games into the season.
Yeah.
I just don't know if this is the right approach. And if I'm a teammate at this point, do you want this in the locker room?
I think this is, you can fault him, or you can kind of see the benefits of his approach with Lincoln Riley. And I think this is kind of why personalities with the process that he goes through and finding the guys that he wants to be on his roster going forward from the high school ranks, the personality part and kind of getting a good feel on whether a guy is going to be, looking to jump somewhere, in year 2, whether it's from NIL or not playing, as much as they want to. That's a big part of the recruiting process with this coaching staff. So now you have somebody here who's this is number 2 times now they've kind of gone through this for different reasons. And, USC is not going to, cater to what Bear Alexander wants with this situation. So he either returns or he redshirts and tries to figure it out somewhere else. But USC is not going to the reps are not going to be dictated by the player in this case.
Yeah, look, to me, my favorite statement that Coach Riley gave yesterday about the non-story as of yesterday was, it should be hard to play defensive line at USC. It ought to be kind of hard. It wasn't hard last year. That's why we weren't very good up front. So sometimes, when someone's not doing it, he's talking about being competitive, being consistent. And all of a sudden now there's more talent in that room. And Bear can't just come out there and say, hey, I'm Bear Alexander. Put me in the game, coach. You've got guys like Nate Clifton and Gavin Meyer and Kobe Pepe who have developed, who have stepped up their game. And I want to remind everybody, it wasn't Bear Alexander who the coaching staff wanted the younger players to emulate. It was the guy who probably joined the team, the last guy to join the team, Gavin Meyer. He's the guy Coach Lynn and Coach Riley want these younger guys to emulate. He does everything the right way, yada, yada, yada. So if that type of message doesn't resonate with a Bear Alexander, and you've got a Coach Henne as well, I just don't see how you fix this situation.
Yeah.
I want it to be fixed, but again, everything that you're talking about, everything that I'm bringing up, I just don't know how you reconcile and bring them back into the fray.
I don't think you do.
Yeah. It's a shame because he's a talented young man.
Yep.
And I'll say this. You don't have to say this. I think the best thing for Bear Alexander, he needs to cut that umbilical cord to Tony Jones. And I understand that man has done a lot for Bear in his life. But at a certain point, if Bear is looking to play in the NFL and Coach Riley is setting you up to be developed to play in the NFL with Coach Henne, with Coach Nua, with Danton Lynn, that NFL coaching staff that you're talking about, Scott, for the life of me, I cannot figure this one out.
No.
This is the worst advice you could possibly give Bear Alexander. Yeah, go ahead, red shirt. Sit out another year. Makes no sense.
It's not. It doesn't make any sense, and it's there's really nothing positive that can come from this. I don't want to say he can't find a great situation for himself, but I mean, at least short terms, there's really not a whole lot of positive results we're going to see from this. From USC or him. It hurts USC by not having him there, but at the same time, I think that you never know what these younger guys are going to, maybe they might surprise you and really step up, and they might even, play just as good. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but, the one thing we were looking at was some of the guys that were walking past us specifically today. We see them all the time walking past us going out to practice, was that, they got some younger guys right now that USC is going to get bigger and stronger just when those guys are ready to play, and join the rotation. And so they've got the bodies. They just don't have the experience to go along with those bodies. And even looking at, we're not probably supposed to talk about, guys that are like Carlin Jones and whatnot, but we can certainly talk about him as a person he's a guy that's not even practicing right now. And wait till he starts practicing and, see what he can do.
Right. That's actually a perfect segue. We're going to talk about what the team does next in the next segment. But first, let me do this. Hey, NFL fans, start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So, when you get that hunch in the middle of the game, you're like, oh, I wonder how my stuff's doing. Now you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same place where you actually place your bets. Never used FanDuel before? Here's your chance. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right, so I told the show's everyday listeners that, on yesterday's episode, Bear did the whole spring holdout thing. So knowing what he's doing, what he's going through right now, he's deciding what the next course of action is for him. How does this affect USC? Assuming Riley doesn't fix this. And again, I said, I don't know. I'm not sure why you would want him back in the locker room anyways. I think at this point, you gotta cut out. You just got to cut this out. Don't let it fester. Again, if I'm on that team leadership council, I'm like, you know what? Close down that dude's biometrics password, lock him out of the building, pack his stuff in a duffel bag. You're out of here. That's my thoughts on the matter. It would take a really hard sell to say, you know what, Mark, let's give him a third chance. Mark doesn't roll that way. That's just me. I'm a little bit old school. So, Scott, let's talk about the guys who are here now. We've seen how good Kobe Pepe is in this scheme. We've seen how good Nick Clifton is, how good Gavin Meyer is. Who's the next man up, in your opinion? You can't just roll with three guys. Who do you think they could possibly move up into the rotation now? Those guys are going to get some more reps as it is. Who do you think is going to be up?
Well, this is one of those topics where you would like to be able to chat with somebody first to kind of get an idea. But when you're talking about some of the younger guys, Cameron Fountain is somebody who I think is the logical choice to step up.
Jade Abasiri.
And size-wise, you look at Jade every day he walks past you, and you feel like you're looking at an NFL line, defensive lineman with that kid. And and it's not like it's this sloppy weight that's on him like it is on me. It's it looks good, and Carlin looks great. These are big guys that are like athletes, and they're going to be a problem down the road. They're just so now now you're going to get a little boot in the butt. You're sitting there at the edge of the pool, right? And what's the last thing you need? You need your daddy to kick you in the ass. Well,
you never swam before, son? Let's learn right now.
Here you go. like my brothers did to me.
One name that we really haven't talked about much this year, and he got a lot of run as a true freshman last year. Does this kind of open the door for Elijah Hughes to step back in? I kind of remember him playing more on the defensive end type of thing. Mm-hmm. He looks like he's getting a little bit bigger. Maybe he's in that transition period right now.
Yeah.
Is he possibly the next man? You need four guys.
Well, he's a guy this is year 2 for him. So, right. It's ideally, I think he would like to have gotten him to year 3 before you had to really throw him to the fire. Because I do think they probably want to add a little bit more onto him. But, he's a guy that is potentially, one of those options for sure. I think if you're looking for really going for the size part, you're certainly looking at Jade, and you're looking at Cam Fountain and whatnot. But there are some pretty good options, and the most experienced would be Elijah Hughes.
Yeah. I think maybe Solomon Tuliapupu is another guy you could probably slide in there on a few different packages, so to speak.
Yeah.
The one thing I think this does affect, again, you're losing talent. If Bear Alexander has made the decision he's going to redshirt, you are losing a dude. I mean, let's not poo-poo this. Well, I'm not going to. I mean,
that's a big deal.
It's a big deal, and I think it caught everybody by surprise. Maybe not one of my everyday listeners who I don't know if he just kind of pulled it out of thin air or if he knew something, but he literally came on and says, "Hey, he's redshirting." Like, all right.
Yeah.
Tell you what, listeners, anytime you have that kind of intel, hit me up first before you post that, and then I will grant you that insider knowledge because I'll say, "Hey, yeah, you know what? He knew."
Yeah.
Anyways, Wisconsin's coming in this week. They're kind of like Michigan light. They're going to throw the ball more frequently than Michigan did. Do you think this is going to affect the way USC plays this week? I mean, the way that team bounced back, they were down 14-3 at the half. Everyone's, down and out. All of a sudden they took the lead. I think this team is as much as they pass the eyeball test with their physicality and what they look like, I think this team is even more mentally tough. I think this galvanizes them.
They're a byproduct in that regard of their coaching staff. That's the coaching staff that they have assembled on defense, I think is the heartbeat of this football program. And I do think that there's some impressive people, and it's rubbed off on this team from this way. Just eyeballing. You and I were having a conversation about just the beginning of practice where we see the simplest of routine drills that they do. Just running quick slants and running some receiver routes, and the guys are obviously working on defense, working on some drills there and getting leverage and whatever they do. But it's just like you're watching every single player on that USC football team. As you're observing, they're taking every single one of those drills like very seriously. There's no off play for any of these guys on the simplest of stuff. So when they talk about, attention to details, the small details matter. They're out there showing us that they're not just saying that. It's not just bullshit.
Right. Yeah. Look, the way this team, the way they're practicing, like someone asked me, Mark, well, what's the vibe of the team this week after coming off that hard loss? And my first response was, I don't think this team understands the word quit. And I use that Woody Marks play where, he chased down Kenneth Grant, Batman took the ball and said, we're going to go back this direction and USC is going to score. That type of mentality tells me that, don't mess with this team. You can throw some obstacles, you can give them some speed bumps, but they're going to find a way to get, to get over it and continue to fight. Today at practice, the vibe was, I don't know, maybe you agree, disagree, kind of like pretty businesslike. Usually there's a little bit more bounce, a lot more dancing, having some fun. They're loose. Today it just seemed like, let's focus, let's do our job. And I'm wondering if this is another thing that's just going to say, you know what? Circle the wagons. Let's make sure everyone's on the same page. And look, you got to take those reps that Bear was getting, and other guys are going to have to step up. It's going to be interesting to see if they're willing. If guys don't try to do too much now, try to put too much on their shoulders.
Yeah.
Well, again, with this coaching staff or guys they've got out there, I don't think it's going to be a problem. And I think Wisconsin's probably coming in at the wrong time. That was a tough loss against Michigan. This team, I think they're chomping at the bit. And you got guys like Eric Gentry. I think he might be the heart of that defense. I mean, he comes off so unassuming, but when you see him on the field, it's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde with that guy. I love that guy. Fun to watch.
He stepped up. That's all I know. I mean, defensively, you couldn't really. I'm not. You can always expect more, I guess, from a player and whatnot. But it's certainly hard to find anything he hasn't done that you would expect him to outdo what he's done so far through 3 games. You knew he was going to be active in this last game if the offense was going to be run like it was. We talked about it and all that kind of stuff. But being active and making the type of plays that he did is 2 different things. You can make a bunch of tackles because the ball's coming at you, but he's making tackles when the ball's on the opposite side of the field. He's still the guy that's like flying in there. Half the time he's horizontal on every play at some point, right?
Right.
Just coming after some.
He covers a lot of space, and he can actually cover up for a lot of, if somebody makes a mistake in front of him, he can cover up for that because of his skill set.
Hell of a year so far. 3 games. I know it's like you don't want to get too carried away through 3 games, but it's hard to deny.
Yeah, he's having an All-American type of season through 3
Yeah.
games.
It's not like they played Utah State every week. They played LSU not at home, and they played Michigan in Ann Arbor. So, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And they're 2-1 right now. And before the season, if someone said, hey, USC's going to be 2-1, everyone would have jumped all over that. They would have been happy campers.
Yes, they would have.
They got a taste of what 3-0 actually almost felt like.
Yeah.
And they can't get rid of that taste right now.
What's just interesting, too, is that the talk preseason, how many games, what do you think USC's going to win? What's considered a good season, blah, blah, blah. We talked about recruiting. What do recruits need to see? And, most of the recruits just kind of like, 8-4, 9-3, but they look good doing it. That's what we want to see. We want to see a team that's going to go out there and play hard and have a chance to win and look like they're well coached. Well, right. USC, other than winning every game from a recruiting perspective, they've checked every box.
Right.
So
they really have. And we're going to talk recruiting in the next segment here. Maybe you might have some nuggets, maybe you don't, but you might have an update.
Not this time, maybe, but who knows? We might think of a few.
Here's my starting 4 rotation at defensive interior, defensive tackle, nose tackle, whatever you want to call them, against Wisconsin. I think your starter is going to be, I'm going to go Kobe Pepe, Nate Clifton. I think backups, Devin Tompkins, Gavin Meyer. Yeah. We didn't even talk about Devin Tompkins, didn't bring up his name. But now, next man up, Elijah Hughes probably slides into that rotation. They've been going 4 or 5 deep at that position, so we'll see who the next guy is. They got a lot of versatility. That's the one thing Danton Lynn likes about his defensive line. Guys who you don't have to substitute for. You can, whether it's first down, second down, third down, if you're on the field, you can play in my package.
No.
That didn't sound right, but you understood what I meant by that. So...
See, some people think that way, some people don't. Your mind's constantly in the gutter.
I know. All right, let's do this. We're going to talk about some recruiting. Let's do this first. Did you know that Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members? You should also know Prize Picks is the easiest and the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on a 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. How easy is that? Yo, Trojan fans, check this out. 1 Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on Prize Picks through the end of the month. So if you're picking 4 to 6, you got 1 win if you think Caleb Williams can get 1 yard in his next game. I think you can guarantee that's going to happen. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. Prize Picks is the best way to get the action on sports in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia, where they make it a little more difficult. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out of your lineup, even if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money, even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Download the Prize Picks apps today and use code LOCKEDONCollege and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's Locked On College on Prize Picks to get $5 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, recruiting guru. Since USC's always out looking around for the next guy to be the next guy, who's going to be, what's going on in the recruiting world? You go everywhere. You see everyone. You talk to everyone. Let's start in California. Who should USC fans be excited about in either 2025 or 2026? Who are some of those guys?
Well, they've got some pretty good guys committed in the class of 2025. It's not a large number. They have more guys committed from Georgia than they do from California, which I don't know why every time I say that, even when I'm not with anybody, I find myself laughing. But it's like Georgia's, this is a whole other topic, but like Georgia is a good place to have a lot of guys from your roster. So
right?
we'll say that. I love the Southern California kids, so I love them too. But Tristan Castro is certainly somebody who, there's a lot of reason to be excited about him. And I think once we get to the class of 2026,
right,
you're going to see a far heavier flavor of California kids. You look at the guys they have committed now, like Brandon Lockhart, and you got Madden Reardon, and you got Tron Baker from Los Alamitos, and you've got some sprinkled in there. You got a good kid from Utah, and you got Xavier Griffin from Georgia. He's probably going to be a 5-star in the next recruiting class. But California is, they've got some guys that, the class of 2026. We've talked a lot about the guys from 2025. There's not a lot from California. So now the recruiting process is really starting to hit full throttle in 2026. You got guys at Monterey like Tom Tapui, who's great. But you got Joshua Holland, I forgot, who's committed to USC from St. John Bosco in the class of 2026, a safety type prospect. So, there are a lot of guys that, we'll be spending a lot of time talking about with USC. And these guys were kind of in the same situation as the class of 2025. Wanting USC to give them a reason to stay home.
Speaking of safety type prospects, how's the relationship building with USC and Madden Paramo? How's that going?
Well, that's a situation right now. He's going to be at Notre Dame this weekend.
Okay.
And so he won't be at the USC game. I know he had plans to go see schools during the season. He wanted to go see everybody play and kind of get the feel in person, but. Myself personally, and in talking with a USC source today, it would be a big shock if he doesn't end up at USC. So that, we're not sitting here making a prediction or anything like that, but I would, and he's a big priority too. But it comes down to him. There was a stretch when Matt Entz came on board. He kind of wanted to see everybody in person, which is,
fair.
It is, but at the same time, it can cost you. And so they were kind of slow on Madden for a stretch there. And then Matt went and saw him, and Entz went and saw him play. And it was like, okay, fix that. But, he needs to know that he's a priority. That's the feeling. And USC is going to do everything possible to make sure he feels that way. So, as of right now, I would, if he had an announcement date or something like that set up right now, I would probably put a prediction in for USC. So
you talked about. You mentioned who won't be able to come to the USC game this weekend. Who are some of the guys that will be at USC this weekend that USC fans might be hear about?
We'll have a list out tomorrow, but guys that we do know that are coming right now. You start off with 5-star quarterback commit Julian Lewis.
Okay.
So that's a good start. His teammate, cornerback commit for USC, Shamar Arnaud, who I love. I mean, this kid.
You're high on that guy, I know.
Yes, love him. Physical, fast, athletic. He's just a fluid athlete. So those guys are going to be coming in. Got Joshua Holland got back to me here earlier today, so he's going to be at the game. Madden Reardon will be at the game. It's going to be probably a pretty good sized list, but I have not gotten a list yet. That's going to be my task tomorrow. So it'll be a good turnout, but right now I think once you start with Julian Lewis and get him on board and his teammate Shamar Arnaud, that's a good thing to get Julian back on campus. There was some talk that he might be at Indiana this weekend. So
I know you're putting together a story for wearesc.com, talking about a big time recruit in the 2026 class that could become an anchor and help other players want to gravitate towards. So don't forget, when you're done making Locked On USC your first listen every day, head on over to wearesc.com, because if you want all of your recruiting information, that's the place to get it. So before we close the show out, if you had to pick one guy, who's next? Who's committing next? We know dates are coming up, but who do you think's the next guy?
Probably defensive lineman Floyd Boucard from Miami, from Canada. Our we can talk about our friends in Canada. They'd be pumped for this one. But yeah, he's at Miami. I think Northwest. This is maybe
he's going to school in Florida. That's all.
One of the schools in Miami, but he was committed, and there's as happens so often, and it's Oklahoma. He was committed to, and so if he ends up committing to USC, that it's going to be fun to be on Twitter for a minute that day, right? With USC and Oklahoma fans going at it again. We get to hear all the Tebow comments about Riley and all that, and his brisket and all that shit.
We won't remind Oklahoma fan that Brent Venables has already lost more games at Oklahoma than Lincoln Riley did in twice as many games when he was.
Will not remind them.
We won't remind them about that at all. We don't want to be bad sports.
We're upstanding, classy people here.
All right, man. Scott, thank you so much. Again, tell everybody where they can find you every day and twice on Sundays.
Yes, we are wearesc.com. It's wearesc.com, and we're part of the On3 network. What you get with We Are SC is you get a lot of smart ass commentary like you get from us.
Yep.
But from like thousands of different people. But the thing is, everybody's passionate about USC. It's like this big family comes together every day. They love to argue about like what color is better or whatever it might be. We don't want new uniform options. We want old school. But you talk about the game. You talk about recruiting. You talk about the Lakers, the Dodgers, whatever you might want to do. You don't talk about politics or religion.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
So it's a place where people come and I think people look forward to like you come here and watch this. You go to We Are SC. Our message board is kind of popping and people will really enjoy it. So wearesc.com. I don't even know what our subscription rate is right now, but it's I think $11.99 a month or $100 for a year or something like that. So, and
trust me, once you've taken a bite, you want as much as you can get. So, Scott, again, thanks for coming on doing the show. We got USC versus Wisconsin, sold out Coliseum Saturday, 12:30 kickoff. I'll be back with another episode of Locked On USC tomorrow, 5 times a week, and I'll be back after the game for that post-game reaction. I have a feeling I'll be in a better mood than I was last week. I better be.
Yeah, I didn't notice.
So until that next episode, everyone, you know what to do.
Mm-hmm.